Thanks for joining me today, Trevor. I have Trevor Whittington, CEO of WAFarmers with me. Good to have you here, Trevor.
Yeah, short notice, Mick. Obviously on the back of the stuff that came through on yesterday from the Federal Minister on immigration.
Yeah, so I think quite a few people are watching very keenly with what's happening there. So for those who haven't heard, if you've been living under a rock, the Federal Minister for Immigration, Tony Burke, on the weekend said that they're going to be throttling down immigrations for working holiday maker visas, which of course they're a core labour source for grain farms with harvest rapidly approaching. So what's actually happening there, Trevor?
Well, if you go back a couple of weeks, there was an announcement. The Prime Minister was out of the country. They left Burke to chair a cabinet meeting to make some decisions on trying to get the net migration numbers down. Obviously, there's a lot of media. One Nation's getting a lot of traction on this. The community has had enough of swelling numbers coming in, impact on housing shortage, pushing up prices of housing. The post-COVID numbers haven't come down anywhere near as fast as where we were, and we're not anywhere near where we were back in the Howard years. The difficult thing is how they bring that numbers down without upsetting their core constituency. They couldn't get something through Cabinet, which tells me 2 weeks ago there was a backlash from the progressive left in the Labor Party. So what came out yesterday was a go slow on working holiday makers.
Yeah, so as grain farmers and a lot of farmers listening know, they're a core labour unit for harvest, and a third of the workforce at peak periods on grain farms in Australia coming in under working holiday maker visas. And with harvest coming up, in our case, I'm expecting early to mid-October it'll commence. On our own business, we have 4 Danish people. They're all qualified. They've done university degrees in agriculture. They've operated machines for years. They're really looking forward to coming here and having that great Australian experience. That's why they come here. They're not coming here to sip lattes or go surfing. And suddenly there's a real risk to whether they're going to come here and all these other farms across Western Australia.
Well, you're quite correct. We might put a little bit of background into this, and I'm just scrolling through. The first one is the traditional backpacker working visa from the UK and France and Europe and Canada. We all know about them. A more recent one is the work and holiday, which is for countries like China, believe it or not, Indonesia, Malaysia,
a lot of South
Russia,
American countries.
Ukraine, South America, Brazil, and they're capped between 100 and 5,000, often have a lottery. Obviously, they would probably, when that came up, they didn't want to say, we only want our traditional Europeans coming out. They had to sort of do a bit of a sop to those countries. A lot of them got good ag people with experience. But, of course, to stop the place being flooded with people from Indonesia coming out using the visa and gaming it, they put caps on it, and there's a sort of lottery system, and they might spread that out over a year as soon as the cap's full. That's only about 20% of the numbers. 80% of the numbers are the traditional working holiday. Last year there was... in total, 321,000 came out. And the numbers are interesting. About 1 in 3 will go regional. So a lot of them will still end up staying in the city and putting beers and pubs and whatever. And 1 in a quarter, 70 or 80,000, will do ag work, which is incredibly important considering the fact that there's another visa we've all heard of called the Palm Worker Scheme, Pacific Islanders, plus Timor-Leste, and that brings in about 30,000. We don't see many in WA, you don't see many on grain farms because they're usually organised to go on the pack houses and the horticulture, picking melons and grapes and whatever. Organised differently, different skill set, certainly to the sort of crew that you'll be bringing out, hopefully for harvest. But if you take that 30,000 plus to say 70,000 come from working holiday visa, that's 100,000 people working in ag across Australia. Australia could not operate without these people because despite the fact that we were bringing in 500,000 people a year, 85% of them are going to Sydney and Melbourne. They don't want to work on farms. They don't even know where the farms are. We are so heavily reliant on these foreign people to do incredibly important work. And we're the only probably Western, developed nation in the world that for its agriculture doesn't rely on, outside probably Japan, great swags of lower income countries, developing countries, or we've managed to find that backpacker, which, the average backpacker earns $8,000 and spends $9,000. So, they're a great asset.
Great contributor to the economy.
That's right. The government's using the argument, we've got 500,000 people coming in, the net migration is growing too fast. It's not quite true. The net migration is something that someone who's been here more than 12 months, you're seen as a net migrant. Now, if you're a student and you're doing your bachelor's degree or whatever, you will end up staying more than 12 months. Adding to net migration. If you're a backpacker and you kick over past your first 12 months, you look like you're a permanent resident, but you're not, because I went back and had a look at some of this. Going back for 10 years to work, out of our 300,000 working holiday visa people that come here, less than 5% will actually end up staying. They'll meet someone here or migrate or whatever. Almost all of them will go home. 50% of the students are coming from India and China and everyone else. They'll stay. And that's what's pushed the figures up. But instead of the government saying, righto, we'll dial the numbers down of
muscling
students.
Up on the students, which is politically a much more difficult one, big universities.
Right, you've got it. So we will go after the farmers and the working holiday makers. And Burke made the claim that, no, we've got a visa class, Pacific Islanders, 30,000, that should be there for the farmers.
Fixes that problem. Yeah, good, great.
We need 100,000, and we are going to be in the world of pain. And
we need 100,000 with those specific skills used on broadacre farms, which the farm workers, that's not part of their background, their training, or their skill set.
And it gets worse than that, because out of the, we need more to work in the pubs. We need more to work in the roadhouses that keep our country towns working. You slow them down. And of course, the backpackers like coming out here during the Northern Hemisphere winter, our summer. Guess when our harvest is? Slowing it down is going to be a problem, because we're going into our summer, which is when the bulk of our backpackers.
Which coincides nicely with the harvest, but not just the grain harvest, but the fruit harvest and the wine harvest and everything else. And so this could actually, we're worried about the grains industry, but this could actually impact on the supply of food on the shelves as well, as if we needed another reduction in supply in Australia at the moment, when our whole economy, our inflation and everything else is being driven by that choking of supply. So, one of the key motivators, as I see it, with reducing net overseas migration is the housing issue, right? So it's a political hot potato. There's a lot of pressure coming on the federal government. So okay, we'll pick on this easy target, this soft target, of the backpackers, but it's not going to address, certainly the backpackers that go to the regions, and it's not going to address the housing crisis, because these people are living in accommodation on farms already arranged.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If they were really concerned about it, they could change the current 3 months, do you 3 months in the bush and then you spend another 9 months wandering around Australia or working in the cities. You could bump that up to 6 months, immediately. And that would sort of sort out some of the people who didn't want to go bush. But we are not driving up the price of housing, and most of the backpackers, they stay in backpackers. So they're not competing for rental accommodation in the urban centres. It's a very political play by a very political government that doesn't have the guts to take on the biggest issue, which is the universities just rorted the system by opening up a pathway for migration. Come and do our $60,000 degree in marketing. Drive an Uber, work in the service station, apply at the end of your visa, don't go home, just apply for another visa and another visa and another visa, roll it on. And guess where they're all living? They're all living in the city. They're not staying in
Yeah.
backpackers.
Filling up
They
houses
are,
in the city. Yeah.
yeah, they were, what was their last year, 800 and something thousand students here clogging up our university system. They don't want to deal with that. Uh, Even the migration, you bring in, for every skilled person you bring in, they up to 3 dependents. If we really wanted to deal with that, you just bring skilled people in, and they can't bring dependents because you still be able to track people. But they don't want to talk about that.
I read recently that the skilled migration, like actual skilled immigrants, are the only subsector of immigration that are actually long-term contributing to the economy. Every other subclass of immigration is actually taking something out of the economy. So it's the last thing our economy needs at the moment. And the big problem here seems to be this divide between the city and the country. I mean, most regional towns, whether it be the farms or the coffee shops or your nursing homes or whatever you have, abattoirs, all these industries that are in regional towns are screaming out for people. And okay, there's housing issues in regional towns for sure, but I don't think there's any regional towns that actually want to see a reduction in skilled workers coming into Australia. And yet here we are, this massive choking of the working holiday maker visas. So what can be done, do you think, to get the message through to government that they need to reconsider this because of the impact it's about to have?
Well, the number one thing is going to flow straight through to the cost of living. If you don't have backpackers picking fruit and vegetables, well, what are you going to do? Rely on imported foodstuffs? Food security, we just ticked over $100 billion worth of food. Most people don't know it. We import 25 billion, so $1 in $4 is imported food and beverage, and a lot of that's the stuff you see in the supermarket shelves. And it's if you want food security, you got to have a labour force that's going to look after your food supply chain, and it's working the abattoirs, it's working in the pack houses, and they're mostly in regional areas. Message, in answer to your question, you've got to get it into their head. It's just going to push up the cost of living. You're really interested in driving down the cost of food production. We need a special ag visa, because why can't you bring in your people 6 months of the year in, year out, no questions, who you provide the accommodation for, drive your equipment, drive it and operate it safely. People can come out and work in the abattoirs for 6 months. Semi-skilled jobs for people who are prepared to live in the regions. And the regions is not Mandurah, we're talking in the bush. We do need a visa like that, and then you can park up the working holiday visa if you needed to and really address our labour shortage. But I'm not hearing any of those sort of sophisticated conversations.
Well, we're actually really worried that with the pressure that's coming on the government, and immigration is so nuanced, right? Like this difference between what the country needs and what the city needs, and what the productive sector needs and what the tourism sector needs. But the real risk is that we're going to actually see even harder, tighter caps or complete restrictions put on working holiday makers. They keep threatening it, and that's the real threat that we're worried about. So it probably is time that we got a visa that was a dedicated skilled farm operator visa for these people, because that's the big distinction here, particularly when it comes to the grain harvest. We've got a $10 billion crop on the stalk, growing on the stalk in West Australia at the moment. Harvest starts in 6 weeks, and if we lose a third of the workforce because the government says they're not going to process their visas in time, then the risk of loss there is massive to the economy. We're talking billions of dollars of loss, plus the strain that it puts on the sector totally unnecessarily through an unwise government reaction to a bit of political pressure. That's certainly how it seems anyway.
Yeah, you're right. There is 2 different sorts of skill sets we need. We need people prepared to, work with their hands picking fruit or packing fruit. Completely different skill set of having someone operate a chase bin tractor or a header or anything else. You just cannot pluck those people out of the Pacific Island, and we don't even have the numbers. We only got 30,000 allocated that visa. Or out of Indonesia, which is that work and holiday visa, and China and other places. Europeans, Canadians, farm kids, like our farm kids go work overseas. I worked on a farm in the UK, in my 20s, that have the language skills, the safety culture, the driving of machinery, work the hours. You need to recognise that. You can't just suddenly, create them, and we can't pull them out of Sydney and Melbourne from new migrants because they don't want to be out here. They don't want to live in the bush. We should just recognise that.
So thanks, Trevor. You've given us a pretty good summary there, and I'm hoping that some of the people who are involved in this decision making get to hear some of this. I'm about to talk to Ley Webster. She's coming on the On WAFarmers podcast as well, recruitment agent in Western Australia who handles a lot of this stuff, and she has a really good proposal that when people have a visa application in the system and they have guaranteed employment on a farm when they come here, that they get escalated through the system because of basically the mounting emergency of getting these skilled machine operators out here. It's an OHS issue as much as anything else. We can't put unskilled people on these 800 horsepower machines. So I'm really looking forward to chatting with her about that. And it was great getting your insights on this as well, Trevor. Thanks for coming in at short notice.
Good on you, Mick.
So we have Ley Webster here from To Work in Oz, a recruitment agency in Western Australia that's done a great job over a long period of time finding workers for farms, particularly at the peak busy periods. Great to have you here on WAFarmers, Ley. Thanks for joining in.
Thanks, Mick. Yeah, it's been been a long journey, I suppose, of these issues with trying to find the right people at the right time, but always up for the challenge. And it's great to join your new podcast.
Thanks for coming on. And obviously the reason we're talking today is about the changes to the working holiday maker visas, just sort of announced over the weekend, and not a lot of certainty around what's happening. And I think a lot of us are scrambling, just trying to work out what is going on, and it's not looking good for getting skilled farm workers in for this harvest, the way things are shaping up.
It's just, I think the timing's just so wrong. It's a critical time. It is the busiest time for all visas, but again, I think it's like that issue we had, you and I discussed a lot during COVID, was that there's no recognition of the skilled workers that are coming in on the backpacker visa, and that's where we run into problems because it's hard to justify their importance to our ag sector, especially the grains industry.
I think part of the problem there is they're called backpackers, isn't it? It's something that I think we've both been bothered with for a while and agitated on getting a new visa name for these skilled workers, which are the backbone, particularly of harvest and also seeding across the $10 billion grain sector in West Australia alone. So when people think backpackers, they're thinking, long-haired hippies from somewhere in Europe coming to make coffee or go surfing. Whereas in fact, we're using this visa because it's the only one available to get these highly skilled farm operators coming in to drive the heavy machinery at harvest and seeding time.
Yeah. And like the majority of the people that I'm talking to at the moment actually have an agricultural education. So this is their profession. It's actually a work experience and a trip that adds to their career advancement. So it's pretty important to them as much as it is to us, I suppose.
So, I mean, the big problem that we're faced with at the moment, based on the news from Tony Burke on the weekend, is that they're going to throttle down the visa applications for the 417. So for anyone listening, the 417 visa is the one known as the working holiday maker visa, often incorrectly referred to as the backpackers visa. So it is the one that a lot of skilled farm workers are coming in from all around the world to help get the crop off in Western Australia. So there's another visa called the 462, and there seems to be a lot of confusion, Lee, around the 462 and the 417. What's actually happening with these visas and being restricted by the federal government. So as I understand it, the 417 visa, which is a working holiday maker visa, basically it hasn't been blocked or stopped or capped or anything like that. Literally what they've done is really throttled back the processing so that these visa applications can't get processed anymore. It's a really crude and blunt way to try to manage the immigration problem that we have in Australia. So what have you seen with the people on your desk at the moment who are trying to get into Australia to drive harvest machinery?
Yeah, so we started interviews for harvest way back in April, and the people that applied for their visas back then and were coming, deciding to come, they were getting approved some of them within a few seconds, literally, of submitting their application. But most, some countries were taking a week, so that was okay. I've now got people sitting in the UK, in Germany, and in Denmark who have been waiting over 4 weeks, some of them up to six to 7 weeks for their visa application, and there's no news on how long that's going to take. So I think when they've paid for their visa, they've made plans. Some of them have paid for flights, knowing that they'd done everything months in advance, paid for flights, given up jobs. It's really rude to think that now they're sitting there and they may not be here in time for the season that they're aiming to be here for. They're not coming for a holiday. They're coming for a very specific short period of time. It's a short window of opportunity for them to do the harvest.
Yeah. So there's some potential reputational harm for Australia as a destination there too, isn't there? So
yeah,
you were saying earlier that that you're writing to the Federal Immigration Minister and some other members of Parliament. What were you planning to put to them? It sounded like quite a good proposal when we were chatting earlier.
Yeah, so I suppose I found out about this on Saturday, so the brain cogs started turning straight away, and it was like, how are we going to? It's not about, okay, they've made this decision, but how can we solve it? How can we help the situation, I suppose? So I know in the past we've had issues with visas that, had been caught up in the very busy times, and when we've expressed a need for them to get here in time for the grain harvest because it was, a small window, those visa applications have been able to be escalated. So I know that there's a process in place. So that was my first thought, was that, okay, we have these skilled people that need to be here. If we can get a letter from their employer to confirm that they have a job that they're coming to do, they're not coming to as a tour, a long-term tourist. They've got a job that they have to be here by a certain date for. Then we can forward that to Home Affairs with their application number and ask that those applications be escalated for the purpose of the grain harvest. I think that's the main, I suppose, demand at this time of the year around Australia. So I think it's really important that, we have these are combine drivers and chaser bin drivers, skilled, experienced chaser bin drivers, not first season chaser bin drivers. So they are.
Yeah, I know.
Really
in our case, we have four Danish people lined up to come out for our harvest. So to put this into a time frame, we're talking the 1st of October is when they're supposed to get here. We'll be harvesting not long after that, with the way the season is shaping up. So it's literally 6 weeks from now. When they need to be on the ground here, so they need to be booking flights and all of this. For us, it's the 417 visa that nearly all of our workers come in, which is the working holiday maker visa. And it hasn't been blocked, but it's been severely throttled. And I think you said earlier you haven't had one of your applicants get approved since the 1st of July. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, I can't. I was going through numbers like applications today, and I can't see anyone that I've spoken to since the middle of July that's had an application. I think most of the applications that have been approved were submitted and approved before the 1st of July.
Right,
so
so that's 6 weeks ago now, and if we're looking at 6 weeks or longer from applications that are being made now, which some of our Danish guys are applying now, that's too late. By the time they find out whether they're approved or not, they can't book flights. So essentially, what you're proposing is that for people coming in on a 417 visa, if they have a confirmed engagement or a employment contract, and if they have a visa and application, you're saying that in those instances when that information is provided to the minister or the department, that they should get expedited processing to make sure that we can make sure that the harvest comes off as it should this year. Is that essentially the proposal?
Exactly. Yeah, and I think if people also, Mick, I mean, we run quite a big website now that's recruiting, around the world and across Australia, New Zealand. We also run a Facebook page that a lot of people advertise on. That's I think it's up over 200,000 people in there. And I've got, I don't know, 60 CVs sitting on my desk at the moment for skilled applicants. And of those, probably only, I think there's only 4 Australians, and there's a few New Zealanders. So it's probably 10%, less than 10% are people that we could employ without a visa. And I think if anyone has that argument that, you know, these people aren't needed, I've got a pretty strong case to show that we don't have the skills in Australia to do it, to fill all the positions that are available. It's critical that we get these skilled operators in on time, to otherwise we're back in those COVID situation where it's a safety issue, it's a productivity issue. And I don't think, with everything that you guys have had to deal with this year, with pricing and supply, you don't need to be dealing with staff and safety at the critical part of the season.
Yeah, I think the grain farmers and people involved in agriculture know what happened during COVID. Basically, there was any workers, their short-term workers coming from overseas just stopped, and it put a massive amount of strain on the sector. And a lot of people, I think, have left agriculture since then because of burnout. You know, and that's actually made this problem worse now. We've got a smaller pool of local people working in agriculture because of the strain that was put on the system during COVID. So to pull the rug out underneath our stable workforce at this late timing ahead of harvest, it would be quite catastrophic. So certainly pretty keen to back you up on what you're doing there with your letter. And I'm involved in the National Farmers Federation Workforce Committee, mainly through developing the ag apprenticeship, which is, you know, that we are trying to build up our own local workforce through these measures. And
I am on the development committee for that as well. So I can guarantee I'm passionate about a local workforce, but we haven't got to that point. We're 10 years away from, I think, replacing these skilled farmers with local agriculturalists that have been through the apprenticeship program. So, you know, but and definitely.
It is a win-win. There's a shortage here, and there's these highly skilled workers from other parts of the world, and they actually come here to build their skills and to take some of the things that they learn from what we're doing here in Australia back to their home countries, places like Denmark, Germany, the UK, so that they can actually spread that knowledge there, and they bring a lot of their knowledge here as well. So it's a win-win situation, and I think this is probably an unintended consequence of the sort of the last-minute visa changes that the government's announced, and hopefully we can see some sensible arrangements made.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mick. Like, if we can go to them with a solution that can demonstrate that we're not just wanting to bring people in willy-nilly. We don't want to open the floodgate again. But we do have a need, and we do have there is a process, there is a way of doing it and managing that control. And, you know, maybe some of the people that are just coming here as a backpacker might miss out this summer. But, you know, we've got to have our harvest done safely and productively. Yeah.
You said earlier we might end up in a situation with 50,000 backpackers in Australia and nobody to drive the machinery. I think that's something we can't allow to happen. Yeah.
I think, and, you know, obviously we have it at the moment. It is saturated. Like, from my point of view, there's a lot of backpackers here, you know, and they're telling us that the numbers are higher than they've ever been. But my training business, I've just shut down because they're not actually interested in training. So they're either getting their 88 days in hospitality, or they're not coming through the ag sector. They're not upskilling to do the jobs that we need them to do. So again, it just demonstrates that we so badly need these skilled people to come in and do the job safely.
Well, it's great that you're taking that initiative, and you're not the only person worried about it. I've had quite a few calls and messages today from just sundry people who are all suddenly thinking we have to do something. So it's great that you actually are, and hopefully we can get the message out through the On WAFarmers podcast as well. So thanks very much for sharing your information with us today.
That's all right. Thanks, and hopefully we can get the answer that we all want. Get the outcome.
Exactly. Thanks a lot, Lee. We'll stay in touch, all right?
No worries. See ya.
Listen out for the On WAFarmers podcast. See you later.
Yeah, I will be. Yes. Thank you. Bye-bye.